Disaster insurance? Depression insurance? Is that a new thing? Let's discuss. How many people have life insurance policies or that wonderful Aflac insurance that if you get injured, it'll pay for your medical expenses plus any groceries or things like that? Sounds useful, doesn't it? Well, let's think about that for a minute. Do I want to give money to another company and on their terms be subject to whether I get it back if something happens to me where I'm out of work or I need money because I can't do something at that certain time or some emergency came up? You know, we have life insurance policies, which I don't know about you, but they're not cheap. I mean, you're looking at policies years ago that if you got when they're young, when they're cheaper, $100,000 policy 20 years ago sounded like a lot of money. Now $100,000 won't pay for your average house. So we're investing in these things of what ifs, and we're paying these insurance companies a lot of money for things that might happen. Kind of sounds like prepping, but someone else is making all the money and you're not getting any return. Does that make sense? To me, it really doesn't. The original preppers or homesteaders had to prepare for contingencies and emergencies. They took it upon themselves and took responsibility for themselves to actually put back food for in case a disaster hit their crops and they couldn't grow, or that what they grew that year was just devastated by a tornado or a drought or whatnot. They had food set back for a year. Well, what about during the Depression? Yeah, farmers weren't rich, but they had food on the table. They were in many ways better off than people that were in the cities that lost their jobs and didn't have anything that they could go back on and help protect their families. Some people think that preppers are crazy or a little out of there. But when you think of it, to me, the people that are investing all this money into insurances of what if, yet they're trusting some other company to handle their money and to come save them if a disaster happens. How many insurance companies have went under over the years? And then you've lost all that you've invested over the time. When you look at inflation and how it's grown throughout time, groceries 5 years ago were a whole lot cheaper. So what if you had bought it when it was cheaper and had it put back? Well, even if an emergency didn't hit and you're rotating your food, you're actually saving a lot of money in the long run and being prepared at the same time for in case an emergency did hit. So to me, investing in these insurance companies, which, yes, some have some value. I'm not going to knock them all, but you're putting all this money into a what if scenario. You're basically prepping, but you're trusting someone else to come to that rescue. Whereas if you conserve that money and put it aside for yourself, and you're in control of it, you don't have to, if your house burns down, go to the insurance company and they want you to make an itemized list of every little thing that you own. That is a tedious, horrible job that in that situation you don't want to hope that you remember everything, because I guarantee you're going to forget something. You know, whereas if you had put that money that you're spending on those insurances aside for yourself and invested in things that can make your life better now and in the long term and become more self-sufficient, where you're not relying upon someone to rescue you, but you have the means to step up when a disaster hits, a recession, you lose your job. All these little things, when you think about it, we've gotten accustomed to someone else is going to come in and help. Well, when you look at history and look at the past, people had to help themselves. And people had to take initiative in their lives. Responsibility is very lacking nowadays. Back then, you had to take responsibility for your own welfare, for your family's welfare. You couldn't rely upon the government, and you shouldn't rely upon someone else to come to the rescue. Now, oftentimes, you would build community, and that community would come together to help you, and you would help other community people in your community. And I think we've gotten so away from that and rely upon governments or companies to come in and save us in a case of an emergency or event, that when you look at the nuts and bolts, the cost of things, and what you can do with that money that you're paying all these other companies and even the government, and seeing how they're spending that money, and all the, okay, hurricane hit, here's your $750. How much of your tax money went to FEMA over the years? I can pretty much guarantee you probably paid more than $750. And even then, people are being denied that. Insurance companies, they're not there to save you. They're there to make money and profit off you. They're counting that no emergency will come. And even when there is an emergency, if you look at all the wonderful fine print in their thing, these certain conditions have to be met. Flood insurance. Well, if it floods your house but it doesn't take off, many policies say that if it doesn't take the house off the foundation, even though your whole inside of the house, it doesn't qualify. You know, all these little things you're counting on when you need it most, and they're going to try to deny you because they're out to make a profit. I encourage you to become your own insurance agent. Take that responsibility back into your hands. Prep. Put that money aside that you're paying all these other companies and put it into a special savings, or heck, a tin can buried in the ground where it's there, or anything that when you need it, you know where it's at. You're in charge of it. I don't think you're going to go and say, well, do I qualify for this? Let me fill out all this paperwork. No. Let me go get a shovel and dig it up. Or let me go to the bank and savings account. So, is this a new thing, disaster or recession or depression insurance? No. It's been going on for years. It's called being self-sufficient and responsible for yourselves. It's something that we need to get back to, and I encourage you to do so. Calculate how much money you're paying to all these insurance companies. think about what are they actually providing. Look at it long term. If an event happened, of how much money you're putting into it, and calculate. I think it's going to be a shock to you. And then think about how much that insurance is going to be worth in 20 years when you need it most. You know, to me, I would much rather be responsible for myself and my family than hoping and relying upon it might be there if I pay in enough. And then only in these certain conditions.
SHTF Survival Homestead Teaching Farm thanks you for watching this video. Please continue to help us help you by liking, sharing, and subscribing.